What's going on, everybody? This is Randall Barnes, the founder of HBCU Pulse and the host of HBCU Pulse Radio, in the building for another special edition of the show on today, where we are talking about HBCU football. Week 11 has passed us, and Week 12 is about to start on Thursday. And we had some technical difficulties that precluded us from doing a full show. Arielle and I are showcasing our amazing chemistry, and we're joking, we're giving our takes on the game. I have no idea why technology doesn't work for me. I work with technology, computers all the time, but it just seems like when I need it to work, it doesn't work. So I appreciate Arielle for working with me to get this show done, even though we weren't able to fully see and hear each other, but we still have an amazing show for you. And if you're listening or watching, we appreciate you for doing just that. And there's a lot of amazing things going on in HBCU football as we reach the end of the season, and the title picture is starting to become more clear in the SWAC, and in the MEAC is looking like South Carolina State is going to really make history for Chennis Berry and go to the Celebration Bowl and win a conference championship in his first year. And it really says a lot about the talent on that coaching staff, the talent on that team, the talent he brought from Benedict, the talent that they recruited, the talent that stayed on after Buddy P retired. So it's a lot of amazing things going on in HBCU football. But first, I want to get to Arielle's breakdown of the South Carolina State versus Howard University game. South Carolina State dominated last year's MEAC champion and MEAC Celebration Bowl representative, and it looks like they want the smoke. They want to get in there, and Arielle has an amazing breakdown. So check it out.
Yeah, Randall, my game of the week was South Carolina State versus Howard, especially not the game that I was expecting. South Carolina State winning 38-14. Howard completely shut out in the second or fourth quarter, something that you rarely don't see. And Howard, not saying that it is impossible, but there's never been a team that I have encountered on their schedule where they're being shut out for 2 quarters or more, not able to put score on scoreboard by 14 points. South Carolina State capitalizing. That's Gerard Washington, really the star of the game, got that 49-yard interception and then returned it for a touchdown, and then going ahead and making that 2-point conversion. South Carolina State really proving and trying to vie for that celebration spot. Now sitting at 7-2 and 3-0, I wouldn't be surprised if they're at the top of the MEAC. Eric Phoenix going for 16 out of 26, not one of his best days, but still affected. 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, one not included from himself in this game, which I find surprising because he always has a way to put himself into the games. South Carolina defense, really, to me, the MVPs of the game, really going in, putting the stop to the run, forcing Howard to play on almost every other play when they did get the ball, not letting them move down the field and allowing them to become the team that they are today. I really think Chennis Berry is doing something with this team that may actually outrun North Carolina Central and make it all the way into the Celebration Bowl. And then when you look at Howard's quarterback, Deshaun Scrogan, just really a terrible game. 3 interceptions, only completing half of his passes. Eden James not getting as active as he should be. And I think it's surprising that Howard hasn't allowed him to touch the ball. Only in this game, he had 5 touches for a total of 14 yards. You have to use this man for his speed. You have to use this man for his skill. And him not being able to find whatever rhythm he has between him and his quarterback and his offense has really stunned Howard this season, especially with them trying to move the ball down the field with South Carolina State. I'm not seeing much that can be done. Jarrett Hunter having 7 carries, 59 yards, but none of them equaling it to the amount that South Carolina State was playing. And if they keep that momentum, I think we can see it continuing into the Celebration Bowl. They might be my new pick. I don't want to just go ahead and jump the gun here, but I think they are giving Central a run for their money. But what's crazy to me is South Carolina State, knowing that they have Chennis Berry, knowing that they have that kind of backfield, only total for 106 rushing yards. And this is kind of less than half, maybe close to half to what Howard put down, which was only 55. So not really much of a heavy run game, not really being on the feet as much, but using the arm. And I think that we can see that Eric Phoenix and this team is becoming really well-rounded. And it's something scary that we should see, and maybe kind of a nail biter that we get into closer to the end of the MEAC season. But this is starting to get down to the wire. But an amazing game by South Carolina State, and we should be looking for more wins from them coming soon.
I thank you so much for that, Arielle. So my game of the week was Grambling versus Alabama State. It did not go the way that we anticipated. Grambling won 24-23. If I told you that Kareem Key passed for 280 yards, 16-28 passing. Now, granted, Alabama State still rushed more than they passed. They rushed for 32 carries and they got 97 yards. I would say, hey, that might be a good game. They might win that game because now they got to rely on throwing the ball. And maybe them throwing the ball and having to throw the ball and not being as proficient in rushing as they have been, where in some games they're rushing for almost 200 yards. Like maybe that's the recipe. Maybe they see, hey, throwing the ball around the yard really works. But ultimately they lost. They only scored 3 points in the second half. Grambling, they're without Miles Crawley, who's a former Alabama State quarterback. And it was sort of an odd game. I would say it's an odd game only because of the fact that Alabama State, they were antithetical to what they normally do. They're very proficient in running the ball. Meanwhile, you have a Grambling team that rushed for more than Alabama State. You have DJ Bailey, 6-12, 76 yards through 1 interception, but they got 3 touchdowns on the ground, 49 carries, 171 yards. They played like, are the stats switched at this point? They played like they're Alabama State. And then you have like Alabama State that's playing like they're Grambling with Miles Crawley. So it was sort of an odd game. It was an out of division game. Alabama State is very much so, unless coming out of tiebreakers, Alabama State is very much so still in the SWAC East Championship picture as they gear up to play Jackson State. It's a picture that I did not think they would be in. Yeah, they lost to FAMU, but they've beaten the other teams that they need to beat. Even though Mississippi Valley State did give them a scare, because Mississippi Valley State popped out, and I was like, wait a minute. Is Alabama State about to lose to Mississippi Valley? No Jerry Rice over there. Jerry Rice ain't there. Some of the other greats like Willie Satellite Todd, they ain't there. Deacon Jones ain't there, okay? And they were about to lose, but ultimately Alabama State came back, and I think they dropped 40 on them. So, like, Alabama State has found a way to be successful. You got to look at the defense. The defense is top of the SWAC, and honestly, one of the best defenses in FCS. And in several metrics, they're like top 5. So that defense steps up, and that offensive line has been amazing in opening up running lanes for their running backs to make plays, to get huge gains on the ground. That wasn't really there because I think that Grambling had an amazing scheme to stop the run. But one thing I'll say about Alabama State's defense, especially on those first couple of drives, when Grambling was on offense, they were sacking them. I think it was that first drive, sacked them, I think, twice. Sacked them twice. It was like 3rd and like 38. I was like, what the word? And then you had Grambling that decided, instead of us throwing the ball and possibly throwing an interception, let's do a QB draw. Let's do a design QB run to get us where we need to be. We're probably not going to get back to the first down mark or even the line of scrimmage. So, let's just go for it and see what happens to put us in a better position to kick the ball. But I mean, Alabama State, the defense is as advertised, and if they had a more competent offense, they're the best team in the SWAC. In my opinion, if the offense, if they allowed Andrew Body to truly get loose, I think they would be the best team in the SWAC, because I know coaching matters. I know there's variables that matter. Coaching matters. Injuries still matter. And, I know all that, right? But I just think that defense is nothing to be played with. That defense is clearly the best in the SWAC, but the offense is anemic. And then when they go antithetical to what works for them, which is the run game, it just doesn't work out for them, And I mean, you look at it, you look at the fact that you had your quarterback, Kareem Key, that carried, he had 4 carries for 6 yards, 11-yard run, 11-yard scamper. He got you 2 touchdowns. Right? There were no receiving touchdowns. He didn't throw for any. 2 touchdowns. So it's like the offense for Alabama State is odd to me. And I'm going to continue to say that, but I understand why they're successful. And I just need for Eddie Robinson, if he really wants to win the SWAC, because I understand you beat Tuskegee, you're good. You win the Magic City Classic, you're good. Turkey Day Classic with Tuskegee, you're good. But I just really want him to prioritize being a more balanced team. And they were balanced On Saturday, they were balanced. I mean, they were, but I want a little bit more balance. Like I want them to throw the ball more. And if Andrew Body comes back next year, I just think that's something that the offensive coordinator and Eddie Robinson, they have to commit to. And they can't do the cute stuff they were trying to do, all these different trick plays, 2 quarterbacks out there. And then like, hey, we're going to like have this like RPO heavy, like, play action. They didn't play action that worked well. But I just believe that it just needs to be a more dynamic offense that allows the quarterback to do his thing and allows that defense to disrupt the offense. And then because I mean, this is the name of the game. Like you force the other team not to score, and then you put up points. That's the makeup of a championship team. They got a championship defense, but the offense is like bottom of the league to me. Just to me, the run game is amazing, but I just believe that for Alabama State specifically, I just don't believe that they're going to be SWAC contenders with the way that they currently play, and I just believe that they need more competent quarterback play. But I think that Eddie Robinson has to allow that to happen and allow the offensive coordinator to really air the ball out, put up some passing plays, do things like that. Because it's cool to have a dual threat quarterback is what you need. But I just believe that you need to let the quarterback be the quarterback. Step up in that pocket, throw the ball. Drop back, throw the ball. I just think that that's what Alabama State needs. And I think that they would quite honestly be the best team in the SWAC if they did that. Well, listen, once again, thank you for tuning in. So we had technical difficulties with the show on this week. And Arielle and I, we want to still put out a show and cover what's going on in HBCU football. So Arielle's game of the week was South Carolina State versus Howard University. South Carolina State dominated Howard, and we expected that they would. And you had Grambling that pulled out a win against Alabama State, which has the top defense in the SWAC. And they're so proficient at running the ball. The offensive line knows how to open up holes for the running backs, and the defense knows how to disrupt the offense, and they were getting after the quarterback in that game. But ultimately, Grambling was able to win the second half 14-3 and ultimately win the game. So let's get to our games of the week for this week. Let's toss to Arielle to see really what's going on with her game of the week. Of course, is in the MEAC as the MEAC race heats up some more.
Okay, Randall, my game of the week, no shocker. And then we joke about this all the time with not having as much games, but Central back from their bye week playing against Howard. I decided to take this game because I think Central is not completely over and out just because South Carolina State is really running through the MEAC. They still were on top. As of this week, they can go 3-1 against Howard. I don't think after Howard's performance against South Carolina State, we will see the same outcome or same even improvement that they will be playing against Central. I think it wouldn't be as much of a challenge for Howard to keep up, but I think this is time for Central to prove that they still want to stay in the stakes, making them both tied of having 3 games won in the MEAC, but Central still having that one game that they lost, which is to South Carolina State. And the South Carolina State wins against Morgan State, who I said is the outlier, who usually comes and ruins these teams' dreams, then maybe we still have a battle. But South Carolina State goes 4-0. I'm afraid that this game against Howard is going to be null and void. But I expect Central to have a win out of this. I expect them to try to keep their Celebration Bowl hopes alive. But we'll see after this. But that's my game in the week, something really big to watch, because if Central goes down, then we really know who's going to the Celebration Bowl.
All right, shout out to Arielle for that. My game of the week is Jackson State versus Alabama State. Every time I try to leave, something keeps pulling me back. I want to do another game of the week. I would love to. I would love to see a game that is more compelling than this game. At this current moment, that game doesn't exist. It don't. It doesn't exist because this game matters so much. Alabama State versus Jackson State. It matters so much for who's going to make the SWAC championship. And it's going to put, if Alabama State were to win, it would put such a wrench in the plans of Jackson State. And it would sort of send the SWAC in a bit of a disarray, because it's like, we were thinking FAMU with Daniel Richardson. Then Jackson State beats FAMU. But then Alabama State beats Jackson State? Like, what's really going on? So it would make the SWAC East race really interesting, more interesting than it's been in a minute. Because first you had Jackson State during the Deion Sanders years dominating the SWAC East. Then you have Willie Simmons. When Deion leaves, Willie Simmons just runs the gambit and has a historic year, win the SWAC championship, win the Celebration Bowl. But now there's a chasm that's opened up now that Willie Simmons left the program and became the running backs coach at Duke. And now you have FAMU with Cozy, you have TC Taylor in Jackson State, and you have Eddie Robinson Jr. in Alabama State that are really vying to see, hey, I want the right to take my program to the SWAC championship. I think that Jackson State they play the type of game that I want Alabama State to play. Like, I would love to see Alabama State play a more balanced type of offense, because in their best games, they're running the ball like 40 times. And they're passing the ball like 12 times. Like, that's like their best game. The game that they lost, incidentally enough, last week, like you had Key that threw for 280 yards and no touchdowns, no interceptions, but he had 28 passing attempts, connected on 16 of them, but he ran for 2 touchdowns. Like, Alabama State, their DNA now is a running team. That's their DNA now. So I want Jackson State's offense to be Alabama State's offense, because my early season prediction of Alabama State going to the Celebration Bowl would have been correct. But for some reason, Eddie Robinson doesn't want that. And now the quarterback situation looks a little bit different than it would have if he had just committed to having Andrew Body be the starter. But I just think that Jackson State has something to prove. And I said this when TC Taylor was hired, because I wanted TC Taylor to be the one that was hired, because you had the situation where people were like, hey, do another celebrity hire because Deion left and he left such big shoes to fill, and you should bring another celebrity in to continue bringing in these highly touted athletes, these folks that will go to these Power 5 schools that want to play for an HBCU. And I was like, nah, like, you need to get someone that can coach. Get a TC Taylor, get a Chennis Berry, get a Teddy Keaton who's doing this thing at Clark Atlanta. Like, get someone that maybe not even HBCU guy per se. I mean, getting an HBCU guy I think works, even though we don't like the trend of recycling coaches. But just get someone that ain't a celebrity, that's not this former NFL player that did this and that, this Hall of Fame player. No, like, just get someone that can flat out coach, that has worked his way up, that's seen it all or seen enough to lead his team and go from there and build from there, especially a younger coach that fits today's athlete and today's game of NIL and social media and streaming and technology and air raid style offenses. Like, you want to get someone that can really blend in to where the game is now and really lead their team effectively with how the game is played now. So I thought that TC Taylor was an amazing hire because of all the amazing things he was doing at North Carolina Central. Then he's a Jackson State alum. And then he was on that coaching staff with Deion, and he was working in different capacities to make the team go and make it all work out. So for me, TC Taylor was a no-brainer, and I thought that last year was very successful. I mean, you're coming off this season where you were undefeated in this way. There was no team except for maybe like Alabama State that at one game, but you pulled away from them, and you had FAMU in 2021. Like, it was a couple games that were like close, like Grambling that one half, that one half. Like, Jackson State was dominant in this WAC. Like, they sort of struggled out of conference, specifically against the MEAC in the Celebration Bowl. But Jackson State under Deion Sanders was dominant. So you have that dominance that happened under Deion Sanders. And then, you lose the Orange Blossom Classic, right? So now it's like, well, what's going on? This feels different. This team is different. Like, half the team hit the transfer portal. Some of them are at Colorado. Some of them left, like Kevin Coleman, like left and went to another team. So it's like, this team feels different. Like, the journey is over. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not. I mean, because they won the week before against South Carolina State, and they look really good. Like, I just think that you need to give TC Taylor some time to get his sea legs under him, and it worked out. And they went 7-4, which for a team that was as dominant as that Jackson State team with Deion Sanders was, that's a plus to me. That's a plus. So now you have a TC Taylor that has this team humming, that has this team going. And I believe they're going to win this game. I believe they're going to win this game. I think that Jackson State, 8-2, they win this game. They're in the driver's seat. They're in the driver's seat to make it to the SWAC championship because they play Alcorn. They play Alcorn, but that's an out-of-division contest because Alcorn is not in the East anymore. They're a SWAC West team. But next week, they play Alcorn, and then like they get a little bit of a reprieve. They get like a Thanksgiving break. They can go home, eat some turkey, some mac and cheese and whatnot, some ham. Then it's time for the SWAC championship, and then they there. You know what I mean? So like they win this game and they're cruising. The season's really over for everybody else, and they make it happen because they beat FAMU. But FAMU still has a life because, Alabama State can make things incredibly interesting. You know what I mean? So I just think that Jackson State, because of how dynamic their offense is, they have playmakers on offense, they have playmakers on defense. I think that Jackson State's going to win. I don't trust Eddie Robinson's offense. Even when they're throwing the ball, which was what I wanted to see, they're throwing the ball more, but I just don't trust that offense because I applaud that offensive line and that defense is like that. But I trust Jackson State more. And that's just my conjecture on it. So I think that Jackson State wins. I trust them more. I trust TC Taylor's game planning, his coach's game planning more. I don't trust the offense currently under Eddie Robinson Jr. If Andrew Body was playing or you had another capable quarterback and you had the offensive coordinator and the team that's willing to throw the ball through the air and establish the run, but then air it out every now and then, not like at the end of the game when you need to, but air it out every now and then. Now it's a different conversation. But as of right now, no. I trust Jackson State way more, and I think that this is the game where they're going to be coordinated the SWAC East champions, and they're going to the SWAC championship likely against Southern. And we're going to see once again, like we did in 2022, Jackson State and Southern, and it's going to be a doozy because that's a crazy, insane rivalry. And we all get up for rivalry games, so that'll be crazy. So that's my game of the week. So once again, thank you if you're still listening and still watching for tuning in. Listen, technical difficulties precluded us from doing a normal show. So I'm going to toss to Arielle to give her social media, and we're going to get out of here. Thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully the Wi-Fi works a little bit better next week. But just to make it normal, I'm going to do what I normally do. Arielle, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at __.modernDayAri, or put me in the hot seat on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @askriri__, or follow me on my website at ariellekilgore.canva.com.
Like what you hear?
Yeah.
Subscribe to HBCU Pulse Radio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, head to hbcupulse.com to stay up to date on what's going on in the HBCU community. Thank you for listening to HBCU Pulse Radio.